You mentioned him there, Jahmyr Gibbs. He could be one of the box office players watching this Lions team. And I think people forget as well, Jameson Williams is still to come back into this team. So they could be just a fireworks display on offense. And with Ben Johnson, who people who don't know, offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, one of the smartest and innovative offensive minds in the NFL. He'll be in head coaching contention come January. I've no doubt about that.
Welcome back to another episode of Georgeonsports with me, your host, George Couture, and returning to the show today, Sky Sports NFL digital editor is Cameron Hogwood. Cameron, welcome back to the show, and how are you?
Thank you for having me. It's always good to come on and chat, and now we're in the week. It's exciting. We're all starting to feel a bit tired, so NFL's back, which is nice. But very well, very excited for the season to start.
And on that segue, with regards to starting the NFL for the 2023, we go nowhere else but with the Lions, who take on the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium Thursday night for us over here. So it's going to be a late game. But this game really stands out to me personally. And if you haven't been following the news, where have you been? And if you have, you'll understand why. Chris Jones, for the Kansas City Chiefs, has yet to report to the team. He's obviously stays doing a holdout right now because he wants more money, and fair play to the guy. He's an absolute beast. The Lions are traveling to Arrowhead. It's a very large stadium. The Chiefs do it all year in, year out. But there is some excitement on the Lions side of the ball. They've got some new weapons in Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the guys that people keep talking about. He's a do-it-all kind of running back. You've obviously got David Montgomery, who they traded for from the Chicago Bears. They've got a great O-line, very underrated O-line. Defensively, they traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles, who had a standout season, led by guys like Aiden Hutchinson. So I'm intrigued to see how this plays out, because we know the Lions are going to be able to run the ball. And without Chris Jones plugging those gaps, I do wonder if we're going to see a high-scoring affair. Before I let you go, I will add, the last time these two teams met, the Chiefs, they took the win 34-30 in a close game. What are your thoughts and feelings on this game, Cameron?
You know what? It's funny because when it's so unfair that the Chiefs can not play with Chris Jones, potentially lose Travis Kelce, and yet because they've got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, we're like, they'll go all the way this year. They'll be fine without them two guys. But I think this is going to be a really interesting look at both teams and kind of where these teams shape up the season, because we're likely to get a look of what the Chiefs will do without Travis Kelce. I think he'll miss Thursday's game. Obviously, he hyperextended his knee in practice. He's a doubt for that game. But I think they can survive on offense without Travis Kelce. As amazing as he is, and as incredible as that marriage with Patrick Mahomes is, that they kind of drifted towards 13 personnel a lot towards the end of last season with kind of 3 tight ends on the field. You'd like to think they almost had a contingency plan for should the worst case scenario happen, Travis Kelce goes down. We've got Jody Fortson that can catch a few balls. He's a converted wide receiver, very, very talented tight end. And you do look around offense and have a bit of faith that should Travis Kelce only miss a few weeks, and that's what they'll be praying for, that they'll survive. But then on defense, I think Chris Jones is the fascinating kind of cog to that team, and that storyline as to whether he'll come back. He is the heartbeat of that defense and a hugely important player for that team. So I think it's going to be a really interesting look at what do they look like without him. I know he kind of turns it on down the stretch. He's such a good playoff player. I think it really heaps pressure on the likes of George Karlaftis off the edge. You look in the secondary, Trent McDuffie, they really need him to have a big year. Linebacker Nick Bolton, how big a year is he due to have? He's such an important player for that team. So fascinating look at the Chiefs, who I still think they'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the year. But the Lions, I can't remember the last time there was so much fanfare around this Lions team. And it's testament to Dan Campbell. He's really kind of instilled his ideologies and the way he wants his team to play. And look, you can look at the rah-rah kind of persona that he approaches it with. But look, it's working. And this team, they were incredible down the stretch last year. Last year, they were a little bit of a surprise package. Now there are some expectations that they have to live up to, I think. Really excited to see Amon-Ra St. Brown. He'll continue his rise as one of the most efficient, safest pass-catching wide receivers in the NFL. Such a talented player. But you mentioned him there, Jahmyr Gibbs. He could be one of the box office players watching this Lions team. And I think people forget as well, Jameson Williams is still to come back into
Yeah,
this team, so they could be
yeah,
just a fireworks display on offense. And with Ben Johnson, who people who don't know, offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, one of the smartest and innovative offensive minds in the NFL. He'll be in head coaching contention come January. I've no doubt about that. So yeah, excited for this Lions team. Look, you mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. He was incredible last year. He really showed them he can be a cornerstone of this team off the edge. He will continue to rise this year, and it's almost the perfect game for the Lions. A chance to lay down a marker. This is what we're going to do this season. This is where we are going to compete. This is where we're at. I think yeah, perfect game to open the season. I think really excited.
yeah. You mentioned head coach Dan Campbell, and I think he really is tearing off those kneecaps. You know, he stuck to that mantra ever since he became the head coach, and they've gone for it hammer and nail. They lost a lot of close games last season, and I picked them as my sleeper team last season, and I feel like alongside the Seahawks, the Lions are another one of my sleeper teams this season. It's a shame that Jameson Williams is going to have to miss, I think it's the first 4 or 6 games. I can't quite remember how many it was, but because he makes a big difference to that wide receiver core. I mean, you've got guys like Craig Reynolds as well, and they aren't, the best of the best. But you mentioned him. St. Brown is obviously one of the elite wide receivers in the game now. He is that guy. I feel like Gibbs, he is almost a direct or very similar replacement to Swift, just a non-injured version of Swift. Because Swift was a guy who, I mean, you take away the injuries, he could pretty much do it all. And they've spoken about potentially using Gibbs in ways that we aren't expecting. So I do wonder if we're going to see some of those packages on Thursday night. But you are right. It's a great game for the Lions to sort of stake their claim in terms of this is where we're at. This is what we need to do. You're coming against the Super Bowl holders, in the Kansas City Chiefs, and what better way to open the season? I've always said that Jared Goff doesn't need to be anybody else aside from Jared Goff. He isn't Josh Allen. He isn't Patrick Mahomes. He isn't Justin Fields. He just needs to be efficient, run up, throw the ball, throw the rock, don't take the sacks, get rid of it when you need to, and just, you've got the playmakers on your squad. I'm really interested to see how CJ Gardner fits into the defense because he's a hell of a baller and he did really well last season with the Eagles. And I feel like they could be onto something here, the Lions, and we'll soon find out Thursday night once they take on a very really tough matchup at Arrowhead as well. It's a very intimidating place to go and play your first game of the season, but we will see how that one pans out, and that's going to be a great game for us to watch over here in the UK. I mentioned Josh Allen. That takes us to one of the next games in week 1 of the NFL 2023 season. The Bills traveling to New York to take on Aaron Rodgers and the newly found New York Jets. See, if you guys have been watching Hard Knocks, you'll have seen what's been going on, how Robert Saleh's been motivating his team, how Aaron Rodgers has essentially become the offensive coordinator, whether you like it or not. He has basically taken the reins on that offense. I wasn't so high on the Jets when they first traded for Aaron Rodgers, and I've been completely swayed 360. I love everything they're doing on that side. I think they're a great team. Aaron Rodgers has clearly still got it. I think he just needed a change of scenery, and it looks like he's really blossoming over there. The Bills, on the other hand, I'm not a fan of what the Bills have been going through the last few seasons. And I really think that the Bills, I won't use the word in trouble. I did some videos earlier a few weeks ago about the heat under the seat for Sean McDermott. And I know they signed long-term deals recently, but the Bills can never get over that hump. They have the same issues year in, year out, and it all comes down to Josh Allen being both the quarterback and their main Russian running back, if you like, and that can't be the case. I feel like the Bills are on a bit of a decline. I know they're still a high-powered team, but they've still got the likes of Gabriel Davis in the wide receiver room alongside Stephon Diggs, but I feel like that isn't enough. They went out and got Latavius Murray, Damian Harris. They got James Cook. Dalton Kincaid as well, the tight end, who's going to do a lot for them paired with Dawson Knox. They'll be running a lot of tight end formations. But for me, this is going to be a great game. A great game. 2 powerhouse teams who are going to be gunning for the Super Bowl. And I'm not entirely sure which way this one may go. My heart is leaning Jets. My mind is telling me Bills. Where are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's such a tough one to call. Like, I think one of the interesting things to that Rodgers storyline to me was people were suggesting he's getting all the attention and this Jets defense isn't getting attention. But I actually think there's an argument for the Jets defense is one of the main reasons he wanted to go to New York, because he needed a defense that could launch a championship campaign. And that defense is right there. That's ready to compete. It was one of the very best in the league last year. You look at Quinn and Williams up front. You look at Sauce Gardner in the secondary. You look at Jermaine Johnson, who's due another leap. Will McDonald, who comes in, who is just a spinning machine off the edge. He will be a dark horse for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I have no doubt about that. I think he'll be an incredible player and excellent to watch as well. But yeah, when you look on the offense, you do wonder if, outside of Garrett Wilson, you're intrigued to see where the next superstar comes from, especially while you're waiting for Breece Hall to come back. I know they went out and got Dalvin Cook, and look, Dalvin Cook at his best, excellent player, but I think when you look at his yards per carry, they declined last year, and that was a sign of very much a veteran back. So how he fares is a really important factor. The pass protection has to be there. At times it hasn't been in over the last few years for the Jets. That's another huge factor people need to take into account. But yeah, the aesthetics, the opticals of Aaron Rodgers thrown to Garrett Wilson, look, it's fireworks. You're excited to see that unfold. Garrett Wilson will establish himself among the very best young receivers this season. He's looked incredible in camp. He showed so many flashes last year, and I think they'll be thereabouts. So just the unfortunate situation of Rodgers hasn't played in a conference this competitive in a long, long time. That AFC is a beast to get out of, and the Bills will be able to tell him that on Monday night. They know all too well just how incredibly tough this conference is, and yeah, I'm leaning a little bit towards your thinking with the Bills, where I'm not sure I'd put them in decline category, but I think they're in danger of really kind of getting buried in that division if they're not careful.
Yeah,
look, still one of the most complete rosters in the NFL, but I think that you're waiting to see what they do down the stretch now. And in the last few years, red zone issues have crept up again. There's been a little bit of feeling that the offense goes stale down the stretch. I think the important factor this year will be more balance. That's what they want, more balance. James Cook being able to alleviate some of the pressure off that passing game. He has to have a huge year out of the backfield, has to. And then you look at Dalton Kincaid, which I've kind of written about a few times, that was almost to me like the Bills looking at, look, if we want to beat the Chiefs, we have to outscore Patrick Mahomes. We have to outscore him and Travis Kelce. So let's go and give Josh Allen, who we hope is his Travis Kelce. Yeah. We'll go and get him Dalton Kincaid, give him a tight end option. We'll throw loads underneath on kind of quick out routes. You bring your defenders down here, and then Josh Allen will dunk on you downfield. I think that's the plan, because we saw last year teams have just dropped 7 defenders into coverage, and even still Josh Allen would just throw downfield because he doesn't care. He trusts his arm, and I think down the stretch that's maybe where he gets into a bit of danger, especially in the red zone, where you kind of know he's going to put his foot down and just not let up with that arm aggression. So a bit more of a diverse offense. This is only his second year with Ken Dorsey as an offensive coordinator, so they'll grow together. We'll see a more diverse offense. But yeah, what a matchup on a Monday night. That division is ridiculous. And yeah, I'm going to say Jets. I think the Jets take it on Monday night. I just think there's so much hope in that team. The pressure's on. Aaron Rodgers looks smiley and happy, fun. Aaron Rodgers again. He's got a new lease of life. I just think the Jets take this one.
Before I continue, can you see me?
Yeah, I've got you back now.
Oh, okay, cool, wicked. Yeah, if it drops out, I think it does it with the lag, but in the final edit, it's all good.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I'll pick up. I think, the dark cave retreat has done Aaron Rodgers some good. It seems like it really has helped him find himself. But you mentioned it earlier about outside of Garrett Wilson, because I had a look at their depth chart, and I'm thinking to myself, it's really interesting. You've got the likes of Mecole Hardman, who's another speedster from the Kansas City Chiefs. In the tight end room, you've got C.J. Uzomah. You've got Alan Lazard, who people were reporting, Rodgers essentially tapped up to come over. Whether that's true or not, we'll never know. But you are right. If outside of Garrett Wilson, you can't really see another kind of big player threat, if I can say that. Obviously, Breece Hall is going to come back, and that dynamic of Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook is absolutely disgusting. That's a force to be reckoned with. We saw how well Breece Hall ran the ball last season before he was injured, unfortunately. But you're right. New York media is New York media. The pressure is on. They've had Hard Knocks. They didn't want to take part in Hard Knocks, but they have taken part, and the limelight is on them. Aaron Rodgers has made the switch. a part of me wants to say the Jets too, actually. Yeah. I mean, I use the word decline with the Bills, but it's more of a steady downwards trend, if you like, as opposed to like a more of a sharp decline. Because again, I don't know if Dalton Kincaid is going to be enough. Stephon Diggs came back to the team and there was a lot of report of unrest, and I'm not surprised by that. It doesn't seem to me like they're plugging the holes correctly. Okay, James Cook is a pass-catching running back, and he'll do a lot of great things, but that wide receiver room, outside of Diggs, and sometimes Gabe Davis can go missing for a lot of games, you know. He can sometimes be the one-dimensional down the field wide receiver as opposed to the guy who can run all the routes, and that is a problem. When you have someone like Josh Allen, you need the steady hand, you need the reliable targets, and maybe Kincaid comes in and does that. I'm not so sure. So for me, and also you got to look at the defense as well. Von Miller's out for the first 3-4 games. That's a big loss. He was one of the reasons why they struggled so mightily towards the end of last season, and now you don't have him for the start of the new NFL season. So I think that's a bit of an issue too. I'm with you. I'm going to say Jets. I think Jets win this game in a close affair. Not too much over because I got Josh Allen in my fantasy, so I need those points. But that would be a great game to watch for sure. A game full of fireworks without a doubt. Coming to another game that I feel like is going to be a must watch. We spoke about Aaron Rodgers. We're going to speak about his previous team, the Packers, who traveled to Soldier Field to take on the Bears in one of the longest rivalries in the NFL, except you minus Aaron Rodgers and you enter Jordan Love. Justin Fields, on the other hand, is on the rise. I mean, I loved everything that happened with the Bears last season. He was able to unleash his scramble ability, and you could see what he did for not only fantasy players, but for the team itself. They go out and get a guy like DJ Moore, who his first touch in preseason, he took it to the house. You know, I know it's preseason, but at least you want to see your guys making plays. They go out and get Khalil Herbert as well, who's going to be a great running back for them. They've got Donta Foreman and rookie Roschon Johnson, who a lot of people are talking about could, you know, become the number one back in the Bears system. They've still got guys like Darnell Mooney. They paid Cole Kmet, gave him a big extension. I personally love what the Bears are doing. I feel like Justin Fields is going to have a great season. In terms of taking on the Packers are a team I'm just not sure. That's how I would describe them. I'm just not sure. You've still got the tandem in AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones in the backfield. You enter Jordan Love. You know, we haven't seen a massive amount of what he can do. And that's probably where people like myself are unsure of how this offense is going to work out. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson on the outside, you know, I'm just not sure how together of a unit the Packers are. Until I see them on the field, I need to see the eye test. So I'm actually going to go with the Bears on the back of this one. I feel like the Bears are going to win this game. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the Packers are an interesting one. They're a bit of an enigma because we don't quite know what we're getting in Jordan Love. We saw him in that Eagles game last year where I think the reports out of Green Bay was quietly that they realised then that they had their guy because he was awesome. And it was only a little cameo, but compared to kind of he was thrown in against the Chiefs the year before when Rodgers went down with COVID and he was like a deer in headlights when Steve Spagnuolo just blitzed him for the entire game. It was like, oh man, what a cruel way to enter the NFL. But I think he's had the chance now to sit behind Aaron Rodgers, learn that system. And what I actually think is he allows Matt LaFleur the opportunity and the freedom to run the system he wants to. Aaron Rodgers didn't want to run the kind of play action, pre-snap motion, kind of all bells and whistles, motioning guys around the field pre-snap. He just wanted to sit in the pocket. He wanted to drop back. He wanted a clear read of the field, and he wanted to throw and dice shot that way. Whereas I think Matt LaFleur will want to move back to kind of almost his principles of kind of play action, kind of lure defenders downhill, kind of disguise that run game, keep people guessing as to what's happening, have guys like Christian Watson motioning in jet sweep motions around the backfield. He wants all that, and I think Jordan Love, that will suit him down to the ground. So in that respect, it should be a fairly nice transition. He'll have kind of planned for this. And then when you look at that receiving group, Christian Watson, he really came to life down the stretch, kind of at that downfield, back-end, vertical threat that the Packers really needed. And once he started to kind of lose those nerves and started to actually keep hold of his catches, where I don't think he had a few catching issues early in the season, really looked to threaten the threat that we thought he would be. I think the question with Christian Watson was always that route tree. He came from North Dakota State where, let's be honest, he didn't really have to do much other than run straight or get the ball in his hands and run away from people. So his development will come on a lot over the off-season. But yeah, that defense goes under the radar a little bit. Rashawn Gary comes back.
Yep.
He's kind of playing towards a big contract. Really talented player. Obviously, was cruelly kind of hit by injury last year. Huge player, and obviously Lucas Van Ness comes in. Another, it just kind of sums up the Packers that he is a huge question mark. Such a small sample size, had almost a breakout year, and here he is as maybe what they hope is their next kind of quarterback hunter of the future. So really interesting team. And then when you look across to the Bears, I think I'm with you. I liked what the Bears did last year in the good patches where Justin Fields had the freedom to put this offense on his back and run those option offense concepts where he kind of could keep the ball and just run away from defenders. I think this year is about seeing how sustainable that is. Can he continue to do that where teams know it's coming at times? Looking, that's an easy thing for me to say because people knew it was coming with Lamar and he'd still run away from you. So I think what the Bears will look to do this year is a bit more diverse, a bit more of a spread look where you've got Darnell Mooney, you've got DJ Moore on the outside. Chase Claypool, I think he's still hoping he can kind of reignite his NFL career. And I spoke to him this offseason. He said, look, we'll be more diverse this year. We'll have more of a spread look. Justin Fields will be expected to pass the ball more. So yeah, I'm interested to see what the Bears look like, especially if Luke gets the offensive coordinator, how he brings this offense on with Justin Fields, because the arm talent's there. Let's not forget that the arm talent is there with Justin Fields. It wasn't long ago where we were kind of looking at him just below Trevor Lawrence as that number 2 pick coming up the draft, and for some reason, whatever reason, he kind of fell a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to give this one to the Packers. I think the Packers take it. I'm intrigued to see what Jordan Love's like, and it could come back to bite me. But I think they might surprise a few people this year.
Yeah, so it is an interesting one again because we just don't know. So until we see, it's going to be hard to kind of gauge where the Packers are going to be this season. Whereas we kind of have a fair idea of what we might see from the Bears, but obviously the passing game is going to be something interesting because you've got guys like DJ Moore in there now who they never had last season. Three great games to start week 1. The Lions and the Chiefs at Arrowhead, the Bills taking on the Jets in New York, and the Packers traveling to Soldier Field for that enormous rivalry game against the Chicago Bears. 2 more games that I want to quickly just mention. Your New York Giants will be facing it off against the Cowboys, who have a ridiculous defense. But I tell you what, I do have a lot of faith in your Giants this season. I feel like Daniel Jones isn't the be-all and end-all, but he's exactly what you guys need. You have surrounded him with the right weapons. I mean, your wide receiver room is looking great right now. You've got guys like Saquon Barkley, who've obviously come back after taking I think it's $11 million one-year deal after holding out. So I'm quite excited to see what you guys do. Darren Waller, a personal favorite of mine, a great tight end in that room. Bobby Okereke, who you stole from my Colts in your linebacker core. So I tell you what, I'm quite looking forward to see how this game pans out, because similar to the Lions going to the Chiefs, you guys taking on that defense and facing up against, guys like Gilmore, who they're traded for. They've got a solid secondary. You already know about their linebacker and their D lineman. Mick Parsons is going to be there all day long. I think it's going to be a great gauge to see not necessarily how the season will pan out, but if you can do some damage against the Cowboys, then I think you're going to go on to have a great season. I mean, I like where I think you're quite a balanced team this season. Obviously, you're going to go with the Giants, but how do you feel about this game?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a really nice kind of marker for the Giants as to where they are coming off last season. It's a little bit of a similar situation to the Lions, but even to a greater extent where last year they surprised people. This year, there are some expectations now as to what they achieved. I think looking at the offense, I think Darren Waller becomes Daniel Jones's top target in the open field, even though he kind of comes under that tight end umbrella. I think he'll effectively be that number 1 wide receiver. We'll kind of see him on the outside more often than not. And then at the same time, Daniel Bellinger was awesome last year, and we really missed him down the stretch last year, where that kind of over the middle option for Daniel Jones, he was key. And so having that kind of 2 tight end formation is really what Brian Dable and Mike Kafka want to do. It's what Brian Dable's done his whole career. He's worked with some of the greatest tight ends in the NFL, and he kind of sees that those 2 tight end packages as key to his kind of helping his young quarterback, even though you can call Daniel Jones young. He's not that young in NFL terms, but I think when you look on the outside, Darius Slayton is somehow asserted himself as one of the most reliable wide receivers on the Giants in recent years. And with all due respect to him, like nobody saw that come in, 5th round pick, almost left last year. That there was the opportunity for him to leave in free agency, I believe, and he kind of stuck around and really made a name for himself last season to help this offense. That Daniel Jones is the big factor. He is under a ton of pressure now. He's with the big contract. He led the team to the playoffs last year. If he can just replicate that form last year, I think he'll keep fans on side. He has to get to the playoffs. So I think that's the big thing. If he doesn't, and you can't just rely on him to run the ball every single game. He has to win a game with his hands more often than not this year, I think. And then obviously Saquon Barkley coming back alleviates that pressure enormously because the offense runs through him. Yeah. Looking back at last year, this Cowboys pass rush, which is ferocious and kind of with this, they kind of managed to stop blitzing and they stunt instead, where they kind of mix up their rush assignments up front. That gave the Giants offensive line so many nightmares last year, and especially Evan Neal up against Micah Parsons. Yes. It was unfair at times, and Evan Neal admitted it afterwards. It was like a baptism of fire for him. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you have to look at the Cowboys defense for what they are, which is one of the very best in the league. And Micah Parsons, I think, could win Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. He is maybe the best pass rusher in the league, and especially if he moves to defensive end full time. I mean, give us a break. Yeah. Come on, it's ridiculous.
I think, so, some of the things that I like for Daniel Jones to win the game with his arms and not rushing is the weapons that you're surrounded with give him ample opportunities. Jalen Hyatt is an absolute freak of nature. Wanda Robinson has been activated. You've got Paris Campbell, again, another member of the Colts that you've mentioned Darren Waller. Isaiah Hodgkins, who came on strong towards the end of last season. He is another guy that I really like. Sterling Shepard is back as well, alongside Slayton. So you've got guys, and I think that should be enough for Daniel Jones to be able to run the ball effectively, but also to throw the rock down the field, because there are guys there, and it's going to be a great matchup and a great marker to kind of determine where you guys are as a team. Before we wrap up, we're going to come to my Indianapolis Colts. It kind of hurts me to talk about this game because I think I know which way it's going to go. We're obviously missing JT. That saga continues down the line. He's now been placed from the PUP, so he'll miss the first 4 games. What happens after that, I honestly can't tell you. I have absolutely no idea whether he gets traded or not, whether he decides to sign for a year or not. I don't know what happens, but there's a big dark blue cloud hanging over Indianapolis right now. You've obviously got AR5, Anthony Richardson, who, for me, his development will be affected slightly, because if you have a guy like AR5 and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, you cause a lot of problems for a lot of defenses out there. Now we're having to look at guys like Zach Moss, if he's even back from his broken arm. We have Deion Jackson, and we've got guys like Evan Hull as well, who is a rookie. But yeah, we have a terrible streak of our opening games. I think it's been over 10 years, 11 years now since we've won our opening game in the NFL. To make matters worse, the Jags are coming home to Lucas Oil Stadium, and they're on fire. Calvin Ridley looks great. The entire squad looks great. Evan Ingram, they signed them to a contract, looks great in their tight end room. Their defense looks great. Josh Allen. I mean, everything about Trevor Lawrence and the Jags look great right now, and it hurts me to say that. They won the AFC South last year. So we're looking to do the same this year. You normally got to back your guys, but I think the Jags will come to Indy and take this win, and it's going to hurt like hell. But all I want to know is, and all I want to see is the development of Anthony Richardson. Just how much can he improve in this season, and that's going to be the main pivot for us. We've had the years of playing the QB carousel game, and that hasn't worked out well for us. We now have Anthony Richardson in the building. He's a freak of nature. He can run the ball. Hopefully, he can throw the ball really well. We've seen what he can do in the short stints in preseason. But I think for us and the Colts, it is going to be a bit of a rebuilding phase. I'm looking at no more than 5 wins, if I'm completely honest. And this game against the Jags, I don't think it's going to go too well. I will give props to the defense. I love what we've got there. Secondary does. I'm quite concerned about the secondary. We've got a lot of young guys. I think we're the youngest team in the league. Everyone's under the age of 30. The rank continues here. You can see where I'm going. But yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for a lot of our guys, a lot of our rookie cornerbacks. Kenny Moore is the most senior guy in that secondary room, and he had a bit of an off season last season, but things have been cleared. He's cleared the air, and he's back for another season. Up front, defensive line, we struggle to get pressure on anybody that we play. Quitty Pay has to come and have a great season. Daiwa Dengbo is someone that I'm looking at as a sleeper who I think is going to break out. We've got Samson Ebukam from the 49ers who, again, are listening to the beat writers, has shown nothing. So I'm a bit scared, if I'm going to be honest. I do think the Jags win this game. I imagine you're going to agree with me, but what do you feel like is going to happen in this one?
Yeah, I will into the Jags. At the traps, I'll go Jags early. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I could just everything points towards Jonathan Taylor staying for me and just missing a year, or used to being like that kind of divorced couple that stays civil with the kids in the locker room. But no, it's a weird one. But I think patience is important for Anthony Richardson, and I say that not only because the roster's lacking a little bit to support him around him. Obviously, we're in the backfield, and with all due respect to Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, those two guys I don't think can quite carry the offense between them at the moment. Maybe we're wrong. We haven't quite seen enough from both of them yet. Both incredibly talented players and really important threats, but I just think we need to see a little bit more from them. Anthony Richardson, people need to remember, is the most gifted quarterback to ever test athletically at the position. He kind of just look at his combine and his testing. Nobody has tested better than him in testing. So what you're getting is, yes, a raw passer of the football who has accuracy issues, but so did Josh Allen. He did as well. Correct. A lot of quarterbacks have come in with the right coaching. You get there, and with the right schemes around you and the right head coach, you'll get there eventually. And I have no faith that he can do that because he's such a gifted, smart, talented footballer. I think you have found your man, and that's the main positive you take from this year. Is you protect him, you roll out the red carpet, you make sure he feels as comfortable as possible to kind of ease his way into what is a horrible conference to be in, and a really tough place to kind of transition from college football. But then I look at the defense, and you want more from Quitty Pay this year.
Massively.
I think he has the potential to be, I don't want to say an X factor, but almost a talisman, a poster boy of that defense. You need more. Shaq Leonard comes back, and people need to remember just how good he is and how important he is at a linebacker. But yeah, the youth side to it, again, calls for patience. I think you have to temper expectations with the Colts this year, and I know it's tough because you've waited so long to find your quarterback. This is almost what should have happened 3 years ago, where you have your young quarterback and you can kind of build into it. Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, I think, will be the perfect kind of quarterback head coach marriage. You look at what Shane Steichen did with Jalen Hurts, and almost that multi-layered RPO scheme where you're giving defenses such a nightmare trying to work out what you're doing. The only downside to that is you'd have loved Jonathan Taylor to be there for it, because put them two next to each other in the backfield and it's absolute chaos to decide what you're doing. Are you throwing? Is Jonathan Taylor running it? Is Anthony Richardson keeping it and running it? See, you as a neutral, you want to see that for the kind of box office offense that it would be at times. I think tight ends always an important position for the Colts. You're kind of waiting for Jelani Woods to really take flight. I think he's on injured reserve at the moment, I believe. Could be wrong, but and then Mo Alley Cox alongside him. I mean, you look at two of the biggest human beings in the NFL there. And if you want to start throwing them up to kind of your power forwards, if you will, or almost basketball terms, two great guys for Anthony Richardson to work with. But the Jags are where you want to be, I think, as a team, where they found their quarterback. They're very settled now, and Calvin Ridley, Trevor Lawrence finally has a kind of established number one wide receiver, and that's nothing against Christian Kirk, who, I mean, there's a bonus having him on the side after a 1,000-yard receiving season. Evan Ingram suddenly took flight, having left the Giants. He produces his best football in Jacksonville under Doug Peterson, and I think the big thing for the Jags this year is they want that defense to really fulfill its potential, because it is full of some of the best. When we're looking at athletic attributes in terms of speed and bend and kind of flexibility, versatility, they have some of the best athletes in the league. Trayvon Walker, obviously number one pick last year, he has such a huge role to play off the edge. And Josh Allen, he and Josh Allen could be one of the most dynamic pass rush duos in the league. You look around and they're full of talent. Caleb on Chason, I've been waiting for years for this guy to kind of be that versatile, almost machine that he promised us. And do we see that this year? Maybe we do. So the Jags are in
Mm.
a better place. I think the Jags are a playoff team. I expect them to win the division this year. So unfortunately for the Colts, I think it begins with a loss. But there's so much reason to be excited about what you have a quarterback. As soon as you get a few more weapons around him, look, Quinton Nelson might come back and be the machine that he once
Yeah.
was. Happy days if that's the case. Yeah, I think expectations are low, but optimism high for the Colts this year.
Tell you what we need. We need Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what we need. But the more I think about this,
Yeah.
the more I think about the Colts and how we look, the more it stresses me out. So we're going to wrap things up there. I'm just glad the NFL is back. We got some great games for week 1. And I'm sure we'll be able to do this again and catch up on some of the games and the highlights and everything that goes down. And let's mention the injuries too, because we know what happened. Week 1 comes around the corner and guys drop like flies. So thank you for coming on the show. I've been George from Georgian Sports here with Sky Sports digital editor Cameron Hogwood, and we'll see you on